Hi, my name is Hiraj, Product Specialist at Yamaha. The Arranger Workstation Series, the PSRS 670, 775, A3000, and the flagship 975 are powerful instruments that combines top-notch voices with cutting-edge DSP and realistic accompaniment that are easy to control via the real-time controls. First, let me demonstrate a few of these voices. And now let me show you a few examples of the accompaniment styles, and I'll be using the style control section to change the behavior of that style. So as you saw, I used some of these buttons on the front panel to control the style's behavior. I went from different sections to endings to breaks. You have total flexibility on how to control the style, which is very important, obviously, because you want to create beautiful music. Let's talk about how this instrument, specifically the 975, applies for a songwriter, a studio environment, and of course a live performer. Let's create an example of how you can use this instrument in a studio environment for a songwriter. So the first thing that I want to do is think of a melody, just a simple melody that I can basically compose, and I'll use a simple sound like a piano. Awesome. Next, I'll use this section to kind of figure out what my chords are. So I'll start maybe with an E minor, and then maybe an A minor add 9, and a D7, a G, etc. So I know my chord progressions, and it's a great idea to actually just kind of write these down on a manuscript so you can write your chord progressions to know what chords you're going to play. Next, I have to think of what genre of music that I want to create this song in. And one of the powerful part about the PSRS 975 is you have a lot of styles organized in genres of music. For example, I have pop and rock, swing jazz, Latin ballads. So once I know what my melody is and I know what my chord progressions, it is as simple as trying out the different styles. So let me experiment with a couple of them. First, I'll try a jazz, press the jazz category. I'll choose one of the cool jazz styles. I turn on the accompaniment. I'm going to get to what these buttons do in just a second, but I kind of want to give you a quick idea to how simple it is to actually create a song on this instrument. So I selected cool piano jazz. I'm going to choose intro number 1, which is a simple count in. I'm going to turn on sync start. What that does is the moment I play a chord on the keyboard, the accompaniment will actually begin in time with the drummer, which is perfect. Last but not least, I'm going to make sure that I have my piano sound. Cool. So I'm just going to experiment. I'm going to kind of play the melody a little bit and just do my chord progression. I'm going to focus on the chord progressions a little bit more than the melody, because the melody is my vocals that I'm singing inside my head as I'm playing, because that's kind of the process that you do when you're creating a song. You have the lyrics inside your head, you know what the melody is. Now you just want to be inspired by how that style speaks to you. So let's give this a try. So here's a jazz style. Again, intro, simple count in, and the groove comes in. maybe it's not something that I actually have in my mind. I'm going to go to a bit to the extreme, the same exact kind of idea, but I'm going to select from the dance category now. So let's kind of hear what that sounds like. So this is a 70 Disco 2 style, same exact process. I selected the style, choose a simple intro, which is just a count in, and I'm going to be on variation B, and just hit sync start is on. Here we go. You know what, let me change the voice as well to, maybe I'll select a saxophone. So here we go. Cool. So immediately I was able to be inspired by the different genre of music, and I can repeat the process over and over. But for the purpose of this video, I think you got the idea that you can choose any of these built-in styles to create your song. So all we have to do is just figure out what the melody is that you want to create. Obviously, you know what the lyrics are, and then experiment with different genres. You can slow things down, you can speed the style up as you wish. The powerful moment actually behind all this is when you record your performance into the internal recorder, save it to a USB drive, and then in a moment I'm going to show you a moment that changed my life when it came to music, where the things that are recorded in real time, I'm able to see the multi-track in your favorite DAW, which happens to be Cubase in my on my part. So I'm going to choose the same style, the disco, but now I'm going to record it. To record, it's as simple as press the record button. All 16 parts are ready to record. You don't have to configure anything. It's ready to record. Similarly, you have to basically now set it up. So I'm going to start with a simple count in, sync start, and I'm just going to record the chord progressions for now. I'm going to leave the melody later because I'm going to plug my vocals into this later to record the audio, or even I can record it into my Cubase. The idea is this is a very flexible instrument that lives in your studio when you're creating your songs. So let me digress and go back to recording the chord progressions that I just described earlier. Here we go. Cool. Gonna press stop, give it a second. I can play it back, of course. Not only it's gonna play what my chord progressions are, but it will reproduce any controls that I engage in the style controller. So it remembers which buttons you pushed to engage the fill-in or to actually change the section. Now that's done, now it's as simple as saving what I just did to the USB drive by going to save, choose the USB drive from the tab section, and press on save, and give this a meaningful name. So I'm just gonna call it demo. So now I have that MIDI file saved on this particular USB drive, and then the next step you'll discover in a moment how I'm going to open that up in Cubase. You do not have to use Cubase. You can use your favorite DAW, but as I mentioned earlier, my favorite is Cubase. So let me show you what that looks like, and this is the powerful moment about what I just did. Take the USB drive. So now I have Cubase Element opened, and I can see my USB drive on the desktop, obviously. I'm using a Mac, but of course you can use a PC as well, and that's the beauty of Cubase. You can use it on both platforms. I'll go to File, I'll select Import MIDI file, and the name of the file that I gave was demo, and I'll open it. So get ready for this moment, because this is just absolutely powerful. Look at that. So now you actually have the multi-track in MIDI of what I just recorded. So now think about this for a second, because now you can actually double click on the MIDI file where you can see the piano roll, and you can go and edit the notes however you want to, whether it's a drum part or it's a bass or the guitar. So even though the style originally had this behavior of a guitar performance, you can actually go into the piano roll editor of your DAW and manipulate these notes. So here's where I want to make an important point. With all the technology that is available and the powerful of the DAW world, how long would have that taken you to actually create from scratch on the computer? That means you have to program the drum parts, you have to actually play the bass line for the appropriate chords, the guitars, etc. And that's just for one genre. What if I just change my mind completely and I want to go back to that jazz feel one more time? That means I have to start all over again in a DAW. But if it's on the PSR S975, it's just as simple as pressing the button of the jazz category, select the jazz style, turn on intro number 1, sync start on. Let me choose a piano sound, and here we go. I'm just going to play the chords one more time to kind of show you how easy the process was. Oh, you know what? Let me try this in Latin bossa nova feel. So I'll just go to the Latin category. I'll choose one of the bossa nova styles, like so. Again, intro. And now I can record that and import into Cubase again, and I can see the multi-track one more time. And then when I'm done, I can record the whole thing as audio into the computer. So for the songwriter, for the guitar player, if you're playing guitar and you want backing tracks, whether it's drums, whether it's bass, this is an awesome instrument for you. A songwriter, as I just demonstrated, you focus on the melody and the lyrics. You no longer have to worry about the technology, how to create the backing track for your song. It's all here professionally done. Speaking to the studio world, you have a full-blown mixer built in, meaning I can mute, I can pan, I can solo, I can change the volumes of all these parts and save it as my own. So that's a very powerful tool to further customize the style to your liking, as far as the levels and the panning and the effects and the DSP and which instruments are playing. So for example, one of the things that I always do is turn off some of these instruments and leave room for my acoustic guitar, for example. So I always, for example, turn off the acoustic guitar to be replaced with a real acoustic guitar. So that is just one part of the PSR S975, is the ability to be used as a powerful songwriting tool. It's great for guitar players to have musical beds underneath them for all categories. It is great for studio environment to be able to create songs as a matter of button pushes to come up with just the concept and then embellish on it later in your DAW. And of course, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but this is the ultimate instrument for the live performer for all genres of music. In fact, this is a great segue to talk about a couple of additions that we added to the PSR S975, is the plus categories in both styles and voices. So what a plus category is, from the plethora of expansion packs that we created at Yamaha that is available on yamahamusicsoft.com, we've taken the best of all these expansion packs and we included them onto the instrument. That does two things. Number one, it gives you more amazing voices and styles. For example, one of my favorite is the Middle Eastern instrument called the ney. And here's what it sounds like. So that's one example. Another example is maybe a nice synth line. So here's what it sounds like. And I'm going to use the real-time controls to affect that sound. Check how cool this is. So you just saw me quickly and easily combine powerful voices with inspirational drum backing tracks that I can just jam with it to come up with ideas or songs, basically. It's that simple. So the categories, the plus categories adds a lot of new content for both voices and styles. The other thing that I mentioned, or the second important point about the plus categories, it now relieves the internal flash ROM, so you can actually add more content into it, because now some of these content is built in. Now I have more room inside the instrument to actually load from those amazing expansion packs that we have on YamahaMusicSoft.com into the instrument. All right, so I want to just bring it back home a little bit and explain some of the real estate that we have on the instrument, meaning kind of divide each section and give you a simplified explanation to what all these buttons do. As a matter of fact, if you do that and follow this part carefully, you will find yourself knowing this instrument close to 70%, because these buttons allow you to make changes very quickly without having to go to the screen and multiple pages to do any or change any parameter. So let's start with the left side right here. So I have a pitch bend and a modulation wheel. What those do, obviously in the case of a pitch bend, bends the pitch. And a great example, for example, is like a guitar. Right? The other, it's called modulation wheel, which adds, in this case, vibrato to the guitar. But that's where it doesn't stop. You can actually assign that to anything you want. The other knobs on the top, and I think you saw this in the example of the synth line, these are what we call them live controls, and there's an assign button above that. That means you can assign these two knobs to do any functions such as cutoff filter and resonance with these two knobs. So it's very intuitive to use in real time, that is. I want to explain the next part, which is the style control section. Intros 1, 2, 3. Those are buttons that you engage when you want to create an intro to a song. And these intros are inspired by famous songs. You can use them without royalty issues because we've taken care of that for you. So you can literally take the intro of any of these styles and use it for your own example. I'll give you a perfect example. If I'm looking to create a commercial theme for a salsa commercial, for example, in New Mexico with mountains and horses, etc. So I have that video already from the producer, and I'm asked to create about 25 seconds of music bed for it. I can turn on my computer, open up tracks, open VST plugins to start. How does a drum come in, how the guitars, how the trumpets. But in here, I selected the movie and show category. And in here, I remember seeing something called Wild West. Again, this is just an example. I know there are so many other types of commercials or movie spots that you might use for, but in this case, I just happen to use this example because I think it will drive the idea home. And now this ties into the style control because, as I mentioned earlier, intro number 1 is a simple count in. Intro number 2 has a little bit more musical content into it. And finally, intro number 3, it has the most complex instrumentation into it. Just because I want to do this commercial, I'm going to use intro 3. I'm going to press sync start. Sync start button, as I mentioned earlier, the moment you turn it on, when you play the first chord, the entire arrangement section actually begins at the same time. So all the basses, the guitars, the brasses will start at the same time as the drummer. So now with that in mind, I'm watching the video. I know I can change the tempo of that, obviously, by pressing the tempo buttons. I have a feel of what the tempo of the music bed needs to be. Now it's just a matter of playing one chord and record it, as I showed you earlier. And here's the process. Here's what it sounds like. So imagine horses. Imagine in the middle of the desert and mountains, etc. Is what it sounds like. Cool. So I can literally take that the way it is, record it onto the recorder, import it into my DAW, maybe change a couple of things about it, and submit it as it is. And you don't have to worry about royalty or copyright issues if you use that. It is 100% copyright free and royalty free for you to use in any of your music applications. Cool. The next part are these sections right here, what we call them variations. So the style variations allows you to advance through different variations. So variation number 1 will have less musical content into it, and all the way to the extreme, variation D will definitely have a lot more musical content into it. The break is exactly what that is. It actually breaks the entire style based on the time signature of the style. And you have ending 1, 2, 3, which correspond to intros 1, 2, and 3. So ending number 1 is a simple outro. Ending number 3 will have a lot more musical content, and it will end once it's finished. Sync start, I explained what that does. It actually engages the style in real time the moment you play a chord. The stop and start button does just that. It turns on and off the drum machine. The sync stop part is kind of an interesting button because it allows you to do the following. So let's say you're playing a style and you want to create your own syncopation in real time. So here's how it works. While I'm playing, I'm going to press the sync stop style, and you're going to see the behavior to what happens. And you saw that I can create my own syncopation. When I'm done, I press it again to exit from that. Next, I have the registration memory section right here. This allows you to save the entire setting of the instrument to a single button. So for example, number 1, I want a piano sound. And from the style, I'm going to choose one of the Latin styles, the bossa nova. I'm going to make sure the tempo is 100 and let's say 22. I have to be very specific. I'm going to turn on accompaniment. And I know when I play this particular registration, I'm going to start with intro number 2 and variation letter C. I'm going to turn on sync start. So I've done a lot of configuration to the instrument, including transposition, for example, if I want to. Then it's as simple as pressing the memory button, press and hold memory button, and press on number 1. So now all that is saved. And in each bank, you have 8 registrations, and you can have multiple banks. And even if you run out, which is, I don't think it's going to be possible, you can always save the rest of registrations to the USB drive. Next, the multipad section right here. The multipad allows you to add additional tracks to the accompaniment. And there's a great way to choose which one by pressing the select button. And you have basically pages and pages of different additional sequences. For example, if I choose Latin percussion, here's a second one. And those, of course, will be synchronized to the tempo of the song that you're playing. And they don't have to be just percussion. There are great guitar phrases. Here's number 4. Perfect. And there's a cool little trick actually by pressing select and number 4. See, it's blinking. That means right now, the moment you start the style, it will actually all play at the same time. And of course, when you hit stop, it will stop at the same time. This section right here is the recorder. When I press record, anything I play on the instrument, it will be recorded. The moment I'm done, I press stop, and it will stop recording, and that is available as a standard MIDI file that you can import into your DAW or play it back onto the instrument. And this is also where, if you have standard MIDI files to play, you can save the MIDI file on the USB drive, put the USB drive in the back, and select the song that you want to play. And if the song happens to have lyrics, you can use the lyrics option in here to project those lyrics out of the VGA output, which is a huge feature of the PSR 975. It has a VGA output that you can actually project it on a screen for people to follow. So it has the line that actually highlights the lyrics for you. The screen is the center location where you select voices and styles. And the buttons here toward the left of the screen can take you to the mixer that you can control the panning, the volumes, the effect sends, all parameters of the mixing capabilities from the buttons on the front panel of the screen. To the right side are your voices. This is where you select your voices from the different categories. So if you press the guitar category, you can go all the way from a distortion guitar to a simple piano by pressing the piano category. It's that simple. In fact, you can combine two sounds or two voices on top of each other. So the first voice is a piano. Now I can select the next voice, which could possibly be strings, turn it on. Then I'll have two voices as a layer. I can go to the actual mixer and change the levels between the strings and the piano. And if I like that, I'll use the registration to save it to a location that I want. Similarly, how the voices are organized in the categories of voices, the styles are also categorized in genres. So if I select ballads, I have 6/8 slow rock, I have 16th modern 16 ballad, 8-beat ballad, R&B, soul ballad, etc. So it's very simple for you to find a genre of music and then the specific style within that genre. Tempo, these buttons will advance through the tempo and then use the wheel to advance much faster between the values. You have the real-time transpose. In real time, you have actually a metronome that you can engage to play. So this is a quick overview about the PSR-S 975. But there's one last feature that I definitely want to show you, which is the vocal harmonizer that is built into the PSR 975. So all what you need is a microphone and an XLR cable with 1/4 inch on the other side. Plug it into the microphone input, and based on the chords that you play with your left hand, your vocal will be harmonized based on that. And there are different presets to check them out. Again, my name is Hiraj from Yamaha. Please take the time to check out all Yamaha product at Sam Ash.